Hello and welcome back to Count Her In. Today we're doing something super special because if you're watching our video, you can see right off the bat, it's just Weilyn and myself. This is because today I'm actually going to be interviewing Weilyn as herself as a Gen Z entrepreneur, hearing about her journey. We've heard a lot of tits and bits in between the interviews and just like from knowing her. But I thought today we can really kind of dive into her journey, everything in between, how she is, a little all you need to know about Weilyn. So I'm super excited for it. Weilyn, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good. It's Thanksgiving week this week, so everyone's a little bit in the holiday season.
Yay.
So it feels good. Yeah, how about you?
That's
How are you
amazing.
doing?
Feeling good. Some tough news
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, we know, but we're being kind to ourselves, we're being gentle to ourselves. But I'm excited to kind of
100%.
take a step back and just kind of ask you. I think I've been wanting to just get into the entrepreneurial journey of Wayland for a while. So I think it's lovely that for whatever circumstance we're able to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, bringing to the table, we can just start us off as per usual. It feels weird to have no one else here. But yeah, Wayland, what are you bringing to the table today? Both literally and
Crazy
figuratively.
not to have anyone here with us today or
I
a guest,
know.
but also so excited because you're one of the best interviewers I know. Truly, you ask and
No.
you listen, which is amazing. For what I'm bringing to the table today, my first ever full bottle of Gatorade for the student athlete that I am.
Ooh, ooh, the D1.
The D1 athlete, no, it kills me every time. But I have some Gatorade, getting those electrolytes in. I'm done.
Love it.
And then figuratively, I think I'm bringing um, hopefully an authentic version of myself today. That's something really important as
Mm.
I share my story. I feel like oftentimes we focus on like the really good parts of the story and the successes. So I really just want to shed light on the bad things, the challenges, and the most authentic version of myself.
Oh, I
What
love
about
that.
you?
So, as per usual, had some beautiful strawberries just before now, which I love, love, love.
My favorite.
To the table, I'm bringing a sense of curiosity. I know a lot about you, but there's a lot I don't know too, and I want to ask kind of those questions and both challenge you, but also myself to ask questions that haven't been naturally brought up before. So I'm excited to see how this goes and just kind of have fun with it. But yeah, just to get us started, just to get the ball rolling, love to ask you, when and why did you start calling yourself an entrepreneur? When was that time that you said, no, like I'm gonna start addressing myself as an entrepreneur. I'm gonna start doing it. So yeah, let me know.
Ooh, I feel like I've always felt like I was an entrepreneur. I think there was like a lot of times when I was younger where I loved to create things. Uh,
Hmm.
I remember when I was around 5 or 6, I was obsessed with penguins, and my dad and I would make like an amusement park or like games or like little houses for my penguins to like play in. Um, so I've always had that energy of like wanting to create and build, especially for other people, or in this case, for my penguins. Um, but I don't think I started labeling myself as an entrepreneur till really this year. I think when we started the Entrepreneurs podcast, and you talked to me about my own entrepreneurial journey, and you were like, Thankful Thursdays and all of the things that I've done and endeavors are actually entrepreneurial endeavors, and that I should be calling myself an entrepreneur was kind of a breakthrough moment for me and really a driving force of this
That's
podcast.
so beautiful. Like I think you make such a great point. Like people do all these things, but you don't really address it unless it's like this pinnacle version of what an entrepreneur is, unless like you register a company. Like that doesn't mean it's not entrepreneurial. And like I love how you always ask questions about the podcast. When was that first inkling of entrepreneurship? And like that's exactly who you are. Like I see that so much
Mm-hmm.
in you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think it's so important to realize, and I think we're doing honestly a little kudos to ourselves. I think we're doing a really good job of trying to redefine what entrepreneurship looks like.
Sure.
And I'm so excited. Hopefully, like 5 years down the line, every little girl knows that they're an entrepreneur. I think would be such a special experience for us all.
I love that. That's so important.
Hmm.
Yeah. And like acknowledging that like your whole life has been an entrepreneurial journey. But on those journeys, there's definitely points of inflection where you feel like there's big points of growth. Either you were challenged or there was a circumstance. So can you think of any points in your entrepreneurial journey where you felt you were really challenged or there was a big growth opportunity for you? I'd love to hear little anecdotes.
Ooh, yeah. The first one that comes to mind was when I first started Thankful Thursdays, which was a startup kind of focused on gratitude and focused on helping schools and businesses around Southeast Asia with gratitude and implementing it in their system. But I remember the first summer that I wanted to do Thankful Thursdays, I wrote up this curriculum. I spent like every day like reiterating it. And then Mr. Ladner, our principal at the time, he said, okay, if you have a curriculum and you're really passionate about it, you can present in front of the entire school and like implement Thankful Thursdays in the year ahead. Um, and I remember I went in, I was super excited, and I thought everyone else was going to be really excited for me as well. But Thankful Thursdays was met with a lot of, not a lot of criticism, but a lot of unenthusiastic students, which
Mm.
retrospectively makes sense, right? They're like sixth to eighth graders, not really concerned about gratitude just yet. And that was a huge setback for me. I was embarrassed by the work that I was doing. I didn't feel proud necessarily that I was doing it. I knew I was doing good work, but I didn't think, like, I didn't want to tell people that I was working on Thankful Thursdays or associating myself with it. And that was something
Mhm.
that really switched in sophomore, junior year of high school, where I started to see it as something that was an opportunity to grow myself, but also grow the community and grow closer with people in the community. And so I remember sophomore year of high school, I got really close to one of our security guards. His name was Akash, and he told me a lot of stories about his life and things that I wouldn't have known if I just had continued just ignoring him or not saying hi or not trying to build a connection there. So that switch was definitely important. And I think I lost your question somewhere down that line.
No, we got an anecdote, no doubt. One thing that comes to mind from
Hmm.
your response is I wasn't proud. I wasn't proud of my sharing, which I find the most saddening thing. Because if
Yeah.
you want to think of entrepreneurs like artists, like one of the saddest things you can see as an artist is someone who like makes a painting or draws or makes a song and you're like, I'm ashamed of this. I don't want to share. And like seeing that in you or seeing that in entrepreneurs, and I felt that myself, even though you've worked hard in it, you
Hmm.
represented the moment you talk about it, you feel a shameful or be like it's not enough. Like, have you had
Hmm.
experience with like the B part of that as well? Like not being enough. Like it's cool, but like it could be so much more. And I don't want to talk about it until it's like a huge thing.
100%. I think we both relate to that a lot, especially with the Entrepreneurs podcast. When people ask me now, even they're like, what are you up to? I'm like, oh, just a podcast. And I always kind of like brush it off as something that's not. I'm like obviously so proud of the work and so excited. And it's really easy to like be online and on LinkedIn and on Instagram and share those really exciting moments. But when I'm talking to friends or when I'm, just like someone asks me what I'm doing, it just feels like something like I don't know, not embarrassing, but it just like gives me that like weird feeling where I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think that stems a little bit from honestly just a lack of confidence and also I don't know, I feel like like kind of maybe a systematic thing too, where
Mm,
a lot of girls feel like they like it has to be perfect before they can present it or it has to reach a certain milestone before it's worth sharing. Um, and so definitely breaking out of that mindset was something huge, I think, in both of our entrepreneurial journeys, being like, hey, like this podcast is so cool. And it kind of reminds me sometimes Allie and I will do this thing where after a podcast recording or after a really tough week, we're like, wait, like, let's take a step back. We have over 34 episodes out on our main podcast. We have over like 20 episodes, I think, on Count Her In. We have literally 5 podcast shows and so many awesome things in the works. Like, why are we still like, oh, it's
yeah.
just a podcast? It's not just a podcast. It's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's huge. You're totally right. And I think this idea of like not being enough has been a theme throughout your life. And like we hear about in the podcast from your perspective. But for those who don't understand the context, why is that quote, you are enough, such an impactful thing for you? Where does that stem from?
Oh, I love that. And yes, there's definitely a story behind that. So I think for most of my life, it was something that I struggled with, I think, throughout. Just this feeling of not being enough or not being valued. But I think it hit probably rock bottom in high school where the environment that we were in was very driven by successes and driven by awards. And I think I found myself kind of like in the eye of the tornado where I
Mm,
was kind of put in a spotlight of being the president, of being in like 5 or 6 different clubs and leading them, and kind of being like very present in our school system, and then feeling like I had to live up to that expectation, that I had to be enough for everyone else. And I remember vividly, I when I started high school, I would go to sleep every night at like 9:30 p.m. And people started knowing me for sleeping early and knowing me for that characteristic. So when I would sleep at 11, or if I had a really stressful night and I was like up till 10:30, or just like watching TV that late, people would be like, ooh, like Weilyn is slipping up, like Weilyn is not, she's like no longer like perfect. And that scared me. That like scared the shit out of me, because I was like, oh, at school I had to present myself with like almost a mask. Like I had to be this perfect version for everyone, so that almost like people could model themselves after me, when in reality,
Wow.
like I was not like that. Like I was not sleeping every day at 9:30, but I felt the need to tell people I was. Or I felt the need to tell people I only spent like 30 minutes on my phone, when in reality maybe I wasn't. And it was like comparing myself to a perfect version of myself where I felt like I
Mhm.
was never enough. And then people thinking that I was, living up to the standard.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it was just like was this odd cycle when I was like, "Oh, I don't feel good about myself." And people are like, "Why do you feel that way? Like your life is good. Your life is perfect. Like you're doing everything right." But I didn't feel like I was doing everything right. And so when college admissions came around, that's when it all crumbled. That's when it all came down. um, but yeah, I remember I applied early to Harvard and I got deferred. And I remember thinking all of those awards, all of those nights studying, all of those no's that I said to friends because I wanted to spend time on clubs or Thankful Thursdays, was not worth it because I didn't get in. And that was my mindset. It was so hard to break out of that and realize
Wow.
like I was more than just a college acceptance, and I was more than just all the clubs I was a part of. And I remember my counselor, love that guy. And he sat me down as I was literally quaking. And he's like, "You're enough. Like, I want you to believe that. Like, I want you to know that I think you're enough, regardless of whether you got in or not." And I remember like literally crying my eyes out because nobody had ever said that to me. So you are enough, whoever's listening to this. I feel like I'm just rambling, but yeah.
No, not at all. It seems to me that like there seemed to be this conflicting version of like what is Waylon,
Oh.
how other people wanted to see you versus like how you saw yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of paint the scene briefly in like 10 seconds or less, if you ask someone at your school, who is Waylon, how is Waylon, how would they describe you, objectively speaking? 10 seconds.
Ooh, are you thinking of like people who know me now or people who know me in
Ooh,
high school?
people who knew you in high school. Just to
Ooh.
set the scene of how this you are enough thing came to be. How would someone at your school objectively describe you?
So in my mind, I always thought people described me as someone who was not perfect, but slept early, got
Mm,
their work done at least a week
mm,
in advance,
mhm,
was on top of their shit,
mhm,
was hopefully willing to help other people get on top of their shit,
mm.
and kind of provide that mentality of like,
Okay,
if I can do this many things, then maybe I should be able to do this many things.
got it.
And that was toxic. And I'm not even sure if people thought that of me. I think I just like built up this image of like, oh,
Yeah.
this is so important to everyone that I'm like this certain way. Yeah.
So then on the counter, how did you see yourself then? What any internal struggle? Like
Ooh.
what was how did you wake up and see yourself in the mirror every day? If you were to describe yourself, how would you describe yourself?
Yeah. I would say the feeling was like chasing something. Like I felt like I was
Wow.
constantly chasing perfection. Like if I didn't get 10 things done one
That should be your
day.
first album, by the way. When you write your when you drop your first album, even a memoir. Imagine that, Chasing
Mhm.
Perfection. That's
Yeah.
so powerful.
It was honestly like scary. Like I would wake up every day like almost in panic that I was not living up to like a certain expectation, or like if I didn't have the most productive day one day, I like literally plan my time like 30-minute intervals with no breaks and just like work my ass off because like I could not take the fact that I was like taking that day off. And because it's literally impossible for someone to be working that hard all the time, like I would not finish things because it's literally impossible and I would feel bad about it. Like I've I don't think for the last I don't know how many years, maybe like since middle school, like have I ever completed a to-do list? Like not once.
Wow.
Because I think that like it's definitely something more than this, but like I think if I don't have like a to-do list that goes literally to the floor, then it's not enough. And so I just pile like literally to this day, I still struggle with making tangible and realistic to-do lists. Um, and I like have never really crossed off everything from a to-do list, which is something else.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, let's say you have a to-do list of your life. What are the
Oh,
5 top to-do lists you want to do by the time you're no longer the energetic, wonderful person on this planet you are today? What are your 5 to-do lists before you die?
five to-do lists.
What's on the
I'm
to-do
gonna
lists?
change that based on one of
Sure.
our guests that we've had before. And they say, I think it was Kimberly, I forget, but someone told us that it's not a to-do list, it should be a to-be list. And kind of changing my mindset towards more of this idea of like the to-do list should push the needle forward rather than making you like push the needle backward almost. Like everything should
Ooh,
push the needle forward. And so on
yeah,
my top 5 list, I think like I want to fill it with spontaneity. I want
yeah.
to fill it, I don't know, with good energy around me. So like good people, good food. Um, and I want to figure out who like the real Weilyn is. Like
Ooh,
as I evolve, being patient with that evolution and also appreciating each stage as it is and not continuing to chase what it could be. So I guess
chasing
that's kind of
perfection.
yeah, chasing,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and I hope that I can be a good friend and a good
Mm.
person for
What does
other
that look
people.
like to you? What does a good friend look like to you?
I think someone who can be there for you, but also more than that, just like do things that you wouldn't expect someone to do for you is
So
something
the spontaneity of it. You
the
want to be a
spontan
spontaneous good friend
yeah. Like
that
there's
comes to
something
your door with cookies or comes
yeah,
to care.
that there's something so special about thinking about someone when they don't think anyone's thinking of them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Like being
Absolutely.
able to just like be like this made me think of you or like I got this for you because it reminded me of you is something so
Yeah.
special and honestly better than any gift or any like the best gifts are always the ones that are like I saw this spontaneously and it reminded me of you and I got it for you because I thought it would make you smile or make you laugh or make you excited. And yeah, I have one of my friends, good friends here, Katie. She's literally like the most excitable person I know. And yesterday I got her like this Lint snickerdoodle like chocolate. And I
Oh,
wanted to give it to her so bad because I knew like her reaction would be priceless. And it just like makes my heart so warm to see her so excited. Unfortunately, did not give it to her, but I told her about it. And she literally is like the cutest person. She like looks like she's about to
oh,
cry. And I'm like, girl, it's just chocolate, but like it warms my heart.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. She's like one of those people who like should be good on a YouTube video for reactions.
Oh,
Like she would be a good, she would
100%.
definitely not be cut from the rough cut. She would definitely be included in the reaction videos. That's
100%.
so cool. I love that you talked about seeing the real Waylon because you
Mm,
talked about these different versions of yourself. So, like, what parts of you do you not think the world knows enough about? What parts of
ooh,
you in your innermost self do you not think that A, you either like not shown enough or B, people haven't appreciated or like internalized enough?
yeah. I think I think it varies person to person. I think a lot of people I guess like I wish people knew that I think about things a lot, and I think about how my
Mm,
actions impact them a lot, and I think about my relationship with people a lot and how I can
yeah.
be better. And besides that, I think one of the most important things is, like, I don't show a lot of my true weaknesses or, like, true struggles with a
Mm,
lot of people. Um, or when I do, they, like, kind of brush it off as, like, "Oh, it's just, like, it's not, like, actually a problem. It's something that
yeah,
I've kind of, like, built up for myself." So,
I
for
see.
example, like, for rowing, like, one of my bigger insecurities, I think, is just, like, being the slowest on the team, which is just a fact for now. And, like, opening myself up in that vulnerable space was something really hard for myself, and honestly, at the beginning of last week, I thought I was just gonna quit because, like, at that moment, like, being so vulnerable with, like, I am the slowest right now, and I'm not the fastest. I'm not pulling as fast as everyone else. My technique is not as good as everyone else. And doing it in such a transparent environment too was so
Mm,
scary, scary to the point where I almost quit. I was telling Allie, like, last week, like, I didn't wanna row anymore. Um, but I realized it was mainly just because 'cause I've never let anyone see that side of me, and never let anyone see that side of failure so publicly, um,
wow.
which scared me the most. Yeah,
Yeah, public failure is huge.
100%.
Like, I remember going back to a conversation we were talking about Thankful Thursdays, you said you went up to in front of the school, like, you were so proud of the work you were kind of doing, like, in your own head or, like, one-on-one, but it's like
Mhm.
when you went in front of school and you felt, at least from what I hear, it feels like you thought it was a public failure because you didn't get the response you wanted. It wasn't just
Yeah.
one-on-one, someone saying, "I don't like it," it felt like everyone didn't appreciate it.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. I think there's something about realizing, 1, a lot of these failures people are not even, like, looking at. I think especially
True.
in the rowing context too, like,
Mhm.
people are only looking at their own scores
Oh,
and they don't
yeah.
even notice, right?
Yeah.
But so it's, like, definitely putting it in perspective, and then the second thing is, like, I think it's so important to deal with it more than just, like, saying you have to deal with failure. I think it's
Mm.
important, like, to be honest that the embarrassment is there, like,
Yeah.
just, like, that icky feeling of not being the best
Mhm.
is there, and it's real. Like, it's not something that's like, "Oh, yeah, like, I faced failure and then I'm better now." It's not
Yeah.
such a linear story.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, I think sometimes it's nice to stick in that ickiness that for a little bit and
Yeah.
feel the discomfort, 'cause it doesn't
Mhm.
feel good in the moment at all. It really doesn't, and sometimes it never feels good. Some things might always feel sticky.
Yeah.
Like, not everything is resolved, and that's kind of a myth that's learned in life. Like, not everything is all well and done and resolved by the end of time. Some things are left still convoluted and unsolvable, and that's difficult to come to terms with. It really is.
100%.
And I think one of those things for us at least was in many ways our senior year. So you were one of the infamous class of 2020. So I'm seeing this context of you under a lot of stress and tension, lots of people pulling you in lots of different directions. And then a pandemic hits. How was that transition for you? You were 5 months at home pretty much in Hong Kong, post protest, during COVID. What was that transition like? Yeah, you were at home. Yeah, you were chilling out a bit more, not going to school. Yes, you were with friends. What was that time emotionally and mentally for you? Did it help you grow? Was it stifling?
Mhm.
Tell me about that time for you and that growth period.
Yeah. I remember my sister and I would go for walks sometimes when she got back from the UK,
Mhm.
and one of the things she told me is that COVID, especially during that time, like, we were in the thick of it, kind of just finishing up
Yeah.
our senior year, and she'd look at me and she'd be like, "You needed this, like, you really needed this." Um, and I remember asking her, like, "What do you mean about that?" And she's like, "You were like, you didn't know who you were for most of high school and still figuring it out now. But I think, like, COVID was, like, an important break for me not to keep up with, like, the perfection I thought I had to keep up with, and, like,
Mm,
it was a nice break not to be in that public eye all the time and, like, face that pressure of, even just going to school, like I loved school for most of it, and like I loved it when I was there, I think. But I think I needed some time away to like recuperate and like like feel things for myself and like understand like what is it that like I actually want? Like that was a really hard question. I think it's still a hard question for me. Like people ask me like what makes you the most happiest? And to be completely honest, I have no idea. Like there's small things that make me happy and like obviously my family and spending time with loved ones, but like even like helping other people, which was my answer for a really long time. Even with that, I don't know whether that truly makes me happy or whether it's just like I like being a good friend and I like being there for other
Mm.
people. Um, Definitely lots of questions going through my mind with that. But I think COVID was a really good time for me to just grow and be more patient with myself. What about you? I'm actually really curious to hear what COVID, I know COVID did a lot of things for you,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
personally,
Personally, COVID was the time that I was able to love myself again. I
I love
felt
that.
like similar to you, I felt in the year 2019, I was
Mhm.
trying to artificially construct myself to be as inhuman as possible. And
Mhm.
that being this perfect version of myself in every aspect, perfect, like perfectly interacting with people, perfectly doing my work, perfectly doing that. And I became inhuman and I had no internal intuition at all. I had no intuition with my body, no intuition with my emotions, no intuition with my feelings, and
Mm.
allowed me to humanize myself. And I know that sounds so weird, like some X-Men sort of shit. But yeah, for me, it was humanizing. I felt like I was human again. And it feels so sad to say, but that's what it was. And now I feel like happy when I get sad sometimes. I'm like, wow, that's so cool that I get to fucking feel shit again. Because before
Yeah.
we would just suppress it and pretend like it didn't happen.
Mm.
Love it. Yeah, I love that you talked about going on walks with your sister too. We both know that we are both two sister families, which objectively is my favorite type of family, two girls. So
100%.
if you do mind, can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with your sister and how that influenced you and influenced you in the past, but also influences you now?
100%. Before we get into that, I love this idea of building intuition. I think it's so important. We build a lot
Hmm.
of intuition about other people. Like you
Yeah,
know when your friend is upset, like you know when they're not feeling their best or not their 100%
totally.
and you're so like equipped with that and like so sensitive to other people. But when it comes to like
Yeah.
yourself, like you could be rock bottom and a part of you is like you're like taste the air, you're like I think I'm fine today. And everyone around you is like, what are you
You're
talking about?
totally
Like
right.
your intuition is so
That's
off when it
so
comes to
right.
yourself. It's like it's actually
You're
kind of
totally,
hilarious when you think about it, right? Like
you're
sometimes I'm
so
crying
right.
and I'm like, wait, let me taste. I think
I'm
I'm
fine. I've
okay.
actually never been happier. My mistake. My mistake. My tears are fake. I've got no tears left to cry. Thank you, Ariana.
But
No,
yeah,
you're
I
totally
love this.
right.
I love
Okay,
the
we got to
idea of
dig
how
into more about, yeah, let's dig into this more. I
yeah,
love
I
that. The
love
idea
it.
of intuition, not being right. My goodness. Yeah. But
Hmm.
do tell me a little bit about your relationship with Kaylin and like, just, yeah, what's your relationship with your
Hmm.
sister like and how has it influenced you?
100%. Well, surface level, I think Kaylin and I, she gets it. Like, she really gets it. And I
I
mean
love
this
that.
because we've traveled and literally lived like everywhere our entire lives. She's the only person I know who's had literally the same story as me. Born in Singapore, raised in the Netherlands, flew back to Singapore in Hong Kong. Like, find me another person, and I think we'll be siblings if that all happens. Um,
And you guys are close in age too. You're only 1 year
yeah,
apart.
exactly. So she's literally been my best friend, and we fought a lot when we were little. And I remember there was this one big fight we had. I don't remember
Mm,
where. I think it was in Singapore. We had like this huge fight, and I remember sitting on my mom's bed after with her, and we were like, "We're never gonna fight like this again. Like nothing will break us." And
wow.
that was a really important thing for my mom too. Like whenever we fought, she'd be like, "You guys have each other for the rest of your lives." Like
True.
when like God forbids, like when they like are no longer with us, like Kaylin and I like are going to be there for each other. And that was something so important
Absolutely.
for my mom. She really harped us on that. But back to this big fight. We had this big fight. We sat on my mom's bed. We were like, we're never gonna fight again. And really ever since then, we haven't had like a huge like tough of it. And like it's been honestly the best, like just being able to talk to her about literally anything and not having her judge me, and she knows me so well. So just being able to have like a second hand, and when I'm going through shit, she's like, dude, like reality check, and I love it.
Yes,
And she tells me like it is. But also it's so funny, just like the tiny experiences. I'm gonna map it out for you, but like sometimes
please.
we'll fight over, you know, I don't know, like clothes or whatever. And then it like happens, it's like super tense for like 30 minutes. And then someone will like go to their own room. And then like 10 minutes later, you like come out and you're like, wait, like, do you want to watch like TV on the couch with me? Because like there's nobody else who's willing to do it. And it's
Yeah.
like that like little tension I find so funny. It's like,
Oh my God.
oh, like,
Especially during COVID. You're like,
yeah,
we got no one else.
it's like I'm gonna go on the couch and watch something. Like, you want to come? And
I guess you could come, or
I'm
whatever.
like, whatever.
Whatever, I guess
It
so.
cracks me up. I
No,
love it.
that's so true. I like what you said about judgment too.
Mhm.
Both when like you want it, but also when you don't want it. So like situations you're like, okay, I just gotta come clean. This was going. They're like, you know what? Nothing's weird. This is totally fine. But also, like, I can speak from my own experience. I use Nicole, my sister, as like the objective jury. I'm like, okay, you tell me if I'm being crazy. And she'll come at you be like, Allie, you're being a fucking bitch. And like, I'm gonna tell you that right now. And like sometimes that's good to happen because you respect it. I respect a lot more like my sister, like BS things than my parents do. Because like my parents, they don't get it, you know. But if my sister said,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, maybe there's something actually weird wrong. Maybe I should like reassess the situation.
Yeah, especially for fights too. Like if my
Yes. Oh my
sister gets
gosh.
into a fight with my parents, she'll like always come up to me and she's like, "Who's right?"
Oh my
And
God. Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Okay, like this, right? This,
Yes.
I don't know about that one."
Yes. Oh my God. Oh, I'm totally right. Yeah. If Nicole calls the fight, okay. So if Nicole sides with me, I'm like, you know what? We are in this together. This is a team. If I'm by myself, I'm like, all right, I am a lone soldier tonight. I know I don't have the support of my committee, but I'm a lone soldier and I have to fight this to the end.
Oh my
Or
goodness.
gather my pride and say I'm sorry now.
Yeah,
One or the other.
one or the
One or the
other,
other.
for sure.
Yeah, but sisters are fantastic.
Mhm.
They really do help shape us. And I think there's something so wonderful. I think a lot of the reasons, like all four of us, you, Weilyn, Nicole, and I are so strong females, the fact that like we've been living in a house where our reciprocal, our complement have been a strong female. So I think there's something
100%.
super beautiful that comes from that. And I
Yeah.
love that. So I've asked you quite a few questions so far, and questions that seem at like that you enjoy answering. It feels natural. But we always get questions. There's always things that are brought up that you really, really hate answering, either topics, specific
Ooh.
questions. So I want to ask you, what question do you hate answering?
Ooh.
Like the thought of that like makes you cringe, you feel uncomfortable, it makes
Mhm.
your stomach tug. What's an idea or a topic you really don't like answering or talking about from your personal experience? This isn't like a political thing, like from like an own personal thing. Like what do you really not like talking about?
I think for a long time, even now, like where I'm from is one of the
Ooh.
hardest questions. Like, where is home for me is a question I think that got a lot harder ever since coming to college.
Yeah.
Um, some context. I feel like most people have the experience of like, I'm from California, I'm from Ohio. Like, it's a very like one word answer. But truly for me, like, it doesn't feel like home is one answer. And that
Mm.
in some ways feels very like not stuck up, but like it does feel like, oh, like I want to flex all the time that I'm like not from
Uh,
a certain place, or like I struggle a lot when people ask me on the spot because like, do I say Singapore? Do I say Hong Kong? Do I say usually the Netherlands is not the place I go for, but it's like usually between the two.
yeah,
And even those don't feel like it tells me as a person. And so
absolutely.
like,
Yeah.
especially, and this ties back to something we talked about in the beginning, it's like when I don't feel like I can answer a question authentically, I feel uncomfortable. So like when I'm answering like where
Uh,
I'm from and I say Singapore, like it doesn't feel like the most authentic version of myself
why is that? Why is that? Tell me why
because
you feel fraudulent in some ways, for lack of better words, by saying that I'm from Singapore. Tell me why that is.
like
What parts of it?
yeah, like my passport's there. I've
Okay.
kind of grown up there, but if you look at it, I've spent the least time in Singapore, 3, 4
Hmm.
years max. And I spent 6.5 years in the Netherlands and 8 years in Hong Kong.
Hmm.
Um, I don't speak Singlish, which is like the
Mm,
Singaporean English. I don't get the jokes. When we go back even,
yeah.
yeah, when we go back even, like it's really hard for me to talk to my grandparents because I don't speak the best Chinese and I don't speak my mother tongue, which is like Hokkien. So that's always been like a struggle. Um, and like even just like integrating back into like family culture, like obviously my family loves me, like my grandparents love me, like I love them,
Mhm.
but it's always like we're a little like out of sync, if that makes sense. So like it's
Mm,
always been like a little out of sync, and I don't know. That's like a huge part for me, just like it doesn't feel like home in
mm,
many ways. And then in Hong Kong, it doesn't feel like truly like home because I'm not from there. I like don't
yeah.
speak the language. There's still like there's a sense of like misstep. Like when you do a dance, you're like one beat off. And it
Mm,
always feels like I've been one beat off.
that's so
Mm-hmm.
important. Oh my God, they're doing one beat off. It's like you never fully, it's not like you're answering all the questions. Yes, there's always the but one, but exception. Like the idea
Yeah.
of being an exception or being a hyphenated person, for lack of better
Mm-hmm.
words. What does that mean to being a hyphenated person or having multiple
Mm-hmm.
identities, multiple questions, and how have you seen that play out in college beyond just, oh yeah, feeling like sometimes people think you're pretentious when you're like, oh, I'm from this place and not. How do you see that in terms of like the people you interact with? Is there a certain type of people that makes you gravitate towards? Are there people that are turned off by that, you think, or intimidated
Mm-hmm.
even? How have you seen that kind of play out in college these last couple
Yeah.
months?
I think like one of the most important things to realize is like everyone's a hyphenated person, and that hyphen doesn't
Mm,
have to be like thousands of countries. It can just be like different roles you play or different hats that you wear. So I truly believe like everyone has a hyphen, and I think those hyphens make us more interesting and bring us closer to our authentic self. Like I think people who think they can sum up their entire lives in 3 words or, describe themselves in 3 words is truly ridiculous. Like nobody
yeah,
is three-dimensional, which is cool, but also kind of terrifying too. There's so much to uncover.
totally.
Um, in terms of college dynamics, I think college has been the one place where I figured out like what a true friend is. Um, and that's been a huge journey for me. Like the first time someone, I think I've told this story on Kind of All Good actually, but like during my first midterm week, I was super stressed about it. And my friends, just like the nicest people, came to my room and they like brought me my favorite snacks and my favorite chocolate and like wrote sticky notes on each of like the bags, like kind of encouraging me through like through midterms week. And I opened the door, I burst out crying. Like it was
No.
the sweetest thing anyone has done for me.
What would you say are some other important hats to you in your life just to finish us off? So we definitely touched on
Oh,
sister,
yes.
definitely touched on being a friend. Any other important hats that you play in your life or identities that you want to touch on that are important to you in your life right now on November 23rd, 2021?
Oh, we should make these annual episodes.
Please,
We're gonna do you
please.
next, but we're gonna
Yay.
do we're gonna do an annual episode. That's such a good reflection point to see
I
where
love that.
our heads are at.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
oh, I love that. Let me think. Okay, other hats that I wear that are important to me. Um, Co-founder of the
Ooh,
Entrepreneurs Network for
queen,
sure.
queen, queen.
um, a daughter, I think, is
Love
important.
that.
Um, a listener, an empath, I hope. Um,
Definitely.
a little bit of a shit
Definitely.
show, just a little bit.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and someone who's just, trying to figure it out.
Oh, great Spotify playlist maker.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
can we get that on?
Oh yeah.
Weilyn? That was like something totally left field. I didn't realize you have such good taste in music, but also we have really similar taste. We're like high 80s matching on
Oh yeah.
Spotify, whatever.
Oh, we love to see it. An
Whatever.
aspiring DJ.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
Waylon. Oh,
It's gonna
oh,
happen.
oh my
Please, my
gosh.
dream.
You just put it out there in the universe. Now it's gonna happen. That's embarrassing. Now it's like actually gonna happen. Oh
I
my
know.
goodness.
A vlogger, mayhaps
Oh
soon.
yes, a vlogger, a DJ vlogger.
A DJ vlogger at
Oh my
Princeton. A day
god.
in my life as a DJ vlogger
Oh,
podcaster.
dead,
Dead.
dead. You will be mixing the podcast. Well,
love
thank
it.
you so much for coming on, Weilyn. Weilyn is now staying at her friend's house during the Thanksgiving holiday.
Woo!
Hope you're going to enjoy some gratitude. If anyone has this holiday, it is you.
Oh
So,
yeah.
very, very last question. What are you most looking forward to for Thanksgiving?
What am I looking forward to most for Thanksgiving? What am I having a break,
Oh,
pushing stop on those
plus one
wheels,
to that.
and just like honestly enjoying and like learning about people. Like like I'm in
Love it.
Pennsylvania right now. I've never like been in this side of the state. Like it's amazing and I'm excited to learn more.
Vlog. Do a Thanksgiving vlog. Have
Yes,
fun.
we'll start
Why
one
not?
maybe. So
Maybe. We'll
cute.
see. Well, what do you hope to leave? Oh, I lied. Sorry. Last question. I forgot. What do you hope to leave on the table for the next generations of young female entrepreneurs?
Oh yes, we're gonna stick to a theme for this one. I think like
Mm-hmm.
be your most authentic self and everything else will
Yes.
come.
Oh,
We love
beautiful.
it. And don't chase
Beautiful.
perfection.
BRB. Gonna go get a crochet on a pillow.
Oh my goodness, I'll
Gonna
crochet
go
it
get a
for you.
magnet. Oh, oh, Waylon, please. Oh my goodness. If you become,
Sweet.
oh my God,
We'll
I'm
do
getting
it.
too excited now. Waylon, Remy's merch dropped. I'm gonna buy you merch.
Oh my
Big
goodness,
news.
yes, we gotta do
I
it.
know.
I'll do
Gotta
it
do
for
it.
you. Yes.
Hanukkah money getting funneled immediately. Well, thank
I
you
love
so
it.
much for coming on, Waylon. I'm so happy we could count you in.
Thank you for having me on. So
You're
cute.
welcome. Thank you for letting me use your Zoom room.
All right. Well, you'll see you guys next week for Allie's episode, hopefully. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
And that wraps it up for today's Count Her In episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, it really means a lot to me that you stuck around and you listened to the end of this podcast. Thank you to our podcast producers too. And if you liked this, please rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this episode right now. Check out our past episodes and look out for our upcoming episodes featuring inspiring female entrepreneurs too. We'd love you to support and be part of the Entrepreneurs Network community on our Instagram and LinkedIn, and get in touch with us with your very own entrepreneurial journey. See you next time.